Hello, ambassadors. We're going to pretend like this room is chock full of people, but I can tell you we have exactly one attendee. Woo! Who is very enthusiastic and we're very excited. But when you have 300% more presenters than attendees, things are a little bit. Although John and I did do an entire session once with one person, and she said we changed her life. So that's pretty good. Yeah, she's a guidance counselor. So we have 41 people signed up, but someone missed the 4 part of that. I'm talking to the ambassadors. Hi, ambassadors. So we're going to present in a medium formal way, so that you guys get a sense of how this looks, but also so it's not absurdly. I'll just talk to everyone. Hello, hello. She's over there. Okay. Hi. We're talking today about, let's start at the very beginning, tech integration for young learners. If you'd like to take a look at today's slides, you can either scan this QR code or the tiny URL MLTI begin. What did you think it was?
Milty Beacon.
Milty Beacon. He's the best.
I think I went to high
What a
school
nice
with
guy
him.
he is.
I said vegan.
Milty Beacon. Sorry, I need to turn off my ringer, which I'll do in just a moment. So who are we? We are 3 stooges. 3 employees of the Maine Department of Education. As you might guess, I am Jonathan Warner. I run the MLTI Ambassador Program, and I'm also the closest equivalent we have to a digital leadership specialist, which is something like a digital citizenship specialist, which we'll talk more about. This is my colleague.
Hi, I'm Allison Braley. I am the computer science specialist for the Maine Department of Education. I am a former classroom teacher of computer science. I taught computer science at RSU 25 for 9 years, and I've been with the department for about a year and a half now. And then this is...
And I'm John Graham. I am the elementary digital learning specialist, so I started the department about 6 years ago, and was on the early learning team, so events like this were definitely something that I went to and participated in, and I came last year to this event. There was nothing tech oriented, so I was like, oh, we have to change that and do something tech focused for this year. So just kind of so people understand like the structure of our team. So obviously there's the Maine Department of Education. If you've been down on the vendor floor, the early learning team, they have their table. So they sit on the Office of Teaching and Learning with us in other groups, but we're our own team, or the Learning Through Technology team. And amongst the things that we do is the MLTI project, which a lot of people know just because it's been around for so long. Most people know it for these white MacBooks that were all over the state for years and years and years, mostly for 7th and 8th graders. I think a lot of early elementary folks might not necessarily be, have some awareness of the program, but probably wasn't really involved in it in particular, just because it's like, oh, it's a thing for the bigger kids. Whereas high schools might, get some of that moving along to them. However, in 2020, we revisioned the MLTI program. It was kind of in a rough state, so we looked at the program with a large group of people, thinking how we might revise, rejuvenate the program, and implemented a lot of changes. I've listed some of these up here. I don't need to read to everybody. But I think one of the key things for early elementary is that we made a very deliberate choice to expand and make MLTI devices available for grades, right now, grades 1 through 12. The reason you might say, why not pre-K, why not K? And a lot of that has to do with our budgeting is informed by student enrollment, and so we go use kindergarten enrollment. We can start with 1st grade, but because of the nature of pre-K in schools, we can't really use that as a measurement right now.
Okay. This next one's going to be a little depressing. Before we begin, we always like to say the following. You should vote with your feet. Meaning, if this is not the right session for you, please don't hesitate to head out. Please hesitate to head out. We also want to be clear that there's lots of ways to learn as you're working with our content. One possibility is to be the focus fan who just is like our super fans zoomed in, dialed into everything we're saying, hanging on our every word, like all the members of my family. The quick clicker, who's like, oh, I just want to see what that is. Everywhere you see this icon, it's something you can click on to learn more. And then if you want to take a longer look and investigate in more detail, feel free to do that too. No one's going to be checking your screen to see whether or not you're on task, unlike the recent DOE meeting I was in. What about the platform we're using? It's Canva. We are huge fans. It is entirely free for any school in the state that signs up for an account. They have been wonderfully supportive of us, and one of the things we actually provide is professional development in utilizing all the tools in Canva. We find it's super interactive, super user-friendly, and just great to kind of connect with all kinds of learners, whatever their level. We can make it interactive, we can do video, so it's been a really powerful tool, and the New England regional rep lives in Cape Elizabeth and is a delightful guy who has helped us out and been really supportive of our work. So we're going to look at a couple things. The first is our technological approach, sort of how we think about early childhood and its connection to technology. We're going to look at what is often referred to as digital citizenship, but which I like to refer to as digital leadership for reasons I'll describe in a moment. Alice is going to talk to us about developing mindsets and skills with technology, and then John's going to look at putting all those pieces together and what a program might look like that was technologically infused. So we're in the process right now of crafting what we're thinking of as statements of purpose, or ways in which we sort of have positioned ourselves on some of the critical issues in education technology. We have one that's coming out shortly on artificial intelligence and education, but this one for teaching younger kids, we wanted to make sure we had in place for today. So thinking about technology learning in early elementary education, emphasizing imaginative play, hands-on exploration, and peer interaction. Activities that nurture computational thinking, logic, and sequencing build a foundation for understanding how technology works, while strengthening focus, creativity, and curiosity. Each of these four purposeful use of screens, unplugged and tangible technology experiences, exploring technology through creation, and learning about AI before learning with AI are available in more detail if you click there and learn a little bit more about sort of the point of view we're taking. But we really want to make sure that we acknowledge that there's a lot of complexity here. It is certainly not a situation in which we can just say, here you go. And I'll talk in a moment about why that approach may have led to some of the concerns we have and how we might start to reverse that trend. So first question really is access. Who has what and what do they do with it? So what tech are younger children using? What do we think about this concept of screen time and how much of it there is? And if we can frame it this way, what should kids be doing with technology? I think one piece that's really critical is asking the question, what kinds of technology are they already using and what pieces are missing? So right now, for early elementary, this gives you an idea of what our program provides currently. So last year, we had 620 devices in grades 1 through 12.
No, in grade 1.
Oh, sorry, I was like, that is
Grade
not a
1
number.
across the state,
There we go.
12 SAU school administrative units.
So sorry. I was like, wait, that's like a very low number. Suddenly my budget just got a lot bigger. Grade 1, 12 SAUs have 620 devices. In 9 SAUs, we have 720 for grade 2, and 920 devices in 17 SAUs, which are school administrative units, all the different kinds, MSADs, SADs. Then here's our 25, 26 numbers. As you can see, they've gone up a bit in grade 1, but as John was mentioning earlier, frequently the devices move with a grade, and then we reset with the lower grade. So it sort of depends at any given moment. This may not reflect the exact distribution at the moment because those devices are based on the previous year's enrollment. About a third of what we offer is iPads, about a third are Chromebooks, and the remainder, are convertible Chromebooks, and then the remaining third is a mix of Chromebooks and MacBooks. As John said, you may know that Apple program had, the MLTI program had been almost entirely Apple-based, and then when it diversified, we were able to make some other offerings, many of which have been really successful in younger grades. What kinds of things are our students doing with those? They're looking at alphabet and ABC work, numbers, shapes and patterns, scheduling and routine, videos, and then images, photos, drawing. Some of the best resources resources we have found to help connect those concepts with actual apps that you could use or programs you could use come through Common Sense Media. That's a clickable link there, and this is to their list of best preschool apps, but they have them by all different grade levels and really sort of thoughtfully curated. They are an incredible nonprofit that we have a partnership with as the main DOE, and they've been very generous with us, but all their materials are free, and they really encourage schools to take part in any aspects of or any pieces of their programming and their resources in whatever way is most valuable to those schools. As one example, they have resources around family engagement. 2 nights ago, I was up in New Sharon doing a presentation on finding balance with media and tech use at home. These are the sort of central questions. They are completely preset. In other words, I don't love the expression plug and play, but you could really just offer them exactly as written, or they encourage you to customize them in whatever way you'd like. So up in New Sharon, they have 2 issues that they were thinking about. They asked us to pull some materials from one of the family engagement sessions and some materials from the other, and we created kind of a Frankenstein-like, but not scary, parent presentation that centered on this idea of finding balance with media. They also use a really cool central theme of healthy tech meals, and so the idea of that balance of different kinds of food, thinking about different kinds of activities you do, both technological and non-technological, plugged in and unplugged, and how your day, your week, your month with a family might reflect that healthy balance. They also, as part of that, talk through things like the benefits and challenges, and they do a great job of sort of balancing those. I love this image that we don't need to know what's here to know that this child has encountered something he probably should not have found. And I think what's really critical to remember is that this does not define kids' experiences, but it frequently does when we leave them to do it on their own. So the way they have framed that shift is getting rid of the term screen time, meaning everything that kids are doing online, to quality media. And this is an example of family interaction using the device as something that is starting a conversation. One of the mothers that was at the event talked about how they have Family Survivor Night, and for a moment I was like, wow, that's too bad that they have the show. So they have Family Survivor Night where they'll watch, they have guests, they have some kind of like who makes dinner based on the best bets the next night about who is going to survive. But the idea of using media in a connecting way, using it in a thoughtful, creative way, we'll talk more about in just a moment. But that dichotomy, I think, is really nicely framed and a great one to raise with your families. It also talks about how, at the end of the day, if your bell rings and you go home and your kids are getting completely different messages at home, you have a very low chance of changing their behaviors. So really thinking through ways that the family can become part of your community-wide effort to change behaviors. One of the things we might consider as we talk about these next couple pieces is what messages are we sending about tech and how might we augment or reframe some of those messages. So, as an example, thinking about this concept from a gentleman named Kevin Honeycutt. He spoke at the Association for Computer Technology Educators of Maine about 10 years ago, and I happened to be in the room, and he said the following: our kids are growing up on a digital playground, and no one is on recess duty. And I can't tell you how kick in the gut transformative that was in my thinking, that I realized that really a huge part of the issue for us the issues that arise from kids' tech use that are problematic is because we make assumptions about their ability to navigate it on their own. And this is 10 years ago, before so much of the complexity had emerged around social media, AI, cyberbullying, cybercrime. Really leaving them to figure that out does not feel acceptable to me, and he really crystallized that for me in a great way. I also really admire the work of George Couros. He talks about, instead of preparing our learners for the real world, how do we help our students make the real world better? And he says the way to think about that from his perspective is not to talk about digital citizens, but to talk about digital leaders and people who take the opportunity to use technology for good to really contribute to the world. So the definition he uses is for digital, using the internet and social media, but then he says a citizen is going to be compliant. They're going to use it in a responsible and ethical way. And that has to stay a part of the puzzle, right? We can't let them be irresponsible and unethical, But he says, what if instead we say, using the internet and social media in a responsible and ethical way to improve the lives, circumstances, and well-being of ourselves and others. And that to me encapsulates so beautifully the direction I would love to see us going with our tech use with kids. In the last image, that square that's here in the corner, where the quote was, will take you to his most recent article on this concept of digital leadership. And I've also found that when I'm working with multi-language learners and immigrant community liaisons, if I say digital citizenship, it is a non-starter for engagement in the conversation. I had a conversation with all of the liaisons here in Portland, and none of them could come up with a translatable vocabulary word that looked like citizenship, that didn't reek of problematic content. So I have really personally leaned into digital leadership as my term. I also like that it's broader, and I really like this idea that it's about improving the lives, circumstances, and well-being of others and of yourself, so that it's sort of mission-driven. And one of the examples he gives in his article is Black Lives Matter. It would not have been possible for that movement to exist without technology. It transformed our consciousness, and it was the best possible way in which we created community and created change, but it required technology. So that for him was digital leadership, not just compliance or digital citizenship. One of the things that really struck me and has resonated for me from that Kevin Honeycutt quote is this idea that we would never, in any other sphere of education, say good luck with that as our pedagogical approach. So I used to work with a woman named Kate Meyer, and she teaches English at the high school level. She's like, I can imagine handing a second grader War and Peace and going, good luck with that, hope that goes well for you, right? Not really the way that we're going to address any kind of educational approach. So then we think about this idea of the digital native that's supposed to explain how they do it on their own. But if they were really native, why would we be needing to have these conversations? There wouldn't be, if they had figured it out by themselves. Even this kid who may have discovered something really cool still needs some guidance about how to do that appropriately, so he doesn't become the kid from a few slides ago who enters something really problematic and gets traumatized. And then an analogy I've been using is this idea that we leave them to their own devices, right, on every level, that they're kind of running through this digital wilderness for hours and hours a day, completely on their own, and we're asking them to figure it out by themselves. So many of the issues that arise for kids happen in that space. At the tech event we did the other night, one of my colleagues made the analogy that we would never hand a kid a knife and send them to the kitchen and say, hope that goes well for you. But we might very well use one of those plastic knives, the safer kind, or go with them and show them how to use a sharp knife. And she said, that's the difference between good luck with that and let's use this tool in a thoughtful and creative way. Common Sense Education also offers a complete digital citizenship curriculum that is also plug and play, for lack of a better word. It goes from K through 12. It has 6 basic threads, plus a whole new series that are related just to the concept of digital literacy and well-being. And these lessons that I've linked here are just the K through 3, but they continue on all the way up through 12th grade. So you can choose to engage or sort of filter those in any way you'd like. And then they have an incredible self-paced professional development program if you'd like to learn more about it. They offer really, really thoughtful, reflective opportunities, and Tali Horowitz, who is the New England representative, is a good friend of all of ours and a wonderful resource. If you'd like to explore that more in those professional development opportunities, we'd be happy to help. We're also very proud that this individual, Nicole Davis, is on our team. She's our LTT Emerging Technology Specialist and helped shape this new curriculum for K6, and has really been instrumental in helping them shift to the well-being aspect of their technological use.
Thanks. Hi. For those of you coming in, this was Jonathan Warner. He is our digital ambassador, and I am Allison Braley. I am the computer science specialist for the Department of Education, and then John Graham is our elementary digital specialist. So I'm going to talk a little bit about building the right mindsets. I teach computer science, and we go from anywhere from pre-K up to 16, well, 12 for the department, but we work all around. So I'm going to talk and start about different ways computer science concepts are really important for kids pre-K to first, second, and third grade, and even before that. So in early childhood, every oops is an opportunity. When young learners experiment with technology or coding tools, things won't always work. And that's the point. The goal isn't perfection, it's persistence. We can model how to respond when something breaks, glitches, or doesn't go our way. Instead of saying that didn't work, we can say what could we try next? Failure recovery in computer science means celebrating the process of debugging, which is a fancy word for fixing things and mistakes. It teaches resilience, problem solving, and emotional regulation. Whether students are arranging coding blocks, building with robotics, or drawing on a tablet, we can help them see mistakes are a part of discovery. With growth mindset around failure tells students you're not done, you're still learning. Oop, I forgot to hit the wrong button. Critical thinking is another really important computer science skill that kids learn as they're developing things. Even our youngest learners are natural analysts. When they predict what will happen next in a story, sort objects by color, or test which ramp makes a toy car go faster, they're thinking critically. Technology and computer science activities amplify these moments. Students plan, test, observe, and adjust. By encouraging children to think about their thinking, we nurture every computational thinking skills. I read that wrong. We nurture early computational skills. Thank you, sorry. Ask questions like, what did you notice? Or why do you think that happened? These simple prompts invite deeper reflection and build analytical habits that will serve them far beyond coding. Critical thinking in early tech use isn't about screens, it's about curiosity, questioning, cause and effect. Okay. There. Nope, I hit the wrong button. I apologize. There it goes. Our youngest learners don't need to become computer scientists today, but they can start thinking on choices and asking good questions. Children begin developing the habits of resilience, creative problem solving, and when we nurture these mindsets early, we are not just teaching technology, we are growing the confidence and curiosity that will power lifelong learning. My computer really hates me today, so I apologize. There it goes. So we're going to talk very quickly also about building critical skills that all kids will need. The first one is computational thinking. Computational thinking starts with taking something complex and making it a lot simpler. For young learners, this can be as basic as putting the steps in order, first, next, and then. Cleaning up after playtime by sorting toys into bins, building a block tower one section at a time. These experiences teach students that any problem becomes manageable when we take it step by step. So breaking big problems into small ones. Children are natural pattern detectives. When they notice that a sphero always turns right after a green tile, they're analyzing and predicting. Encourage them to look for what repeats and what doesn't. When something doesn't work as expected, that's a chance to debug. Debugging builds confidence. It shows that mistakes aren't the end, they're the next clue.
The robots Allison just referenced are color triggered. I should not have put this gigantic thing in my mouth. Sorry. So they go to a green square and they turn right, and it's really cool to watch them reorganize the floor.
And we'll show you. They come with tiles. They're really kind of neat. They have color-coded tiles, and then the robot moves versus the color. I'll show you once we get going. So working on pattern recognition and debugging. Problem solving is where computational thinking meets creativity. Children test ideas, observe results, and adjust, whether designing a path for a robot or finding a new way to share materials. We can support them by emphasizing the process over the product and celebrating their curiosity. Ooh, and I hit the wrong button. Okay. Nope, I still did it. Computational thinking start. Oh, no, I already did that. Sorry, I'm hitting to my butts. Going over the different types of technology that you can use for early education learners is pretty simple. There is a wide variety out there. There is a variety of some that comes with topics that need computers. So if you're using a Lego robotic kit, you can eventually build a robot, but then you use a computer to program it. We have robots like a Finch robot, which use a microbit, and you do need to have a computer to use that. And there are some other things, but there are some really great unplugged activities for kids. And some of these are different robots. As Jonathan mentioned, this is like an indie robot. These were part of a computer science kits that came around in 2020. Governor Mills gave our team a chunk of money to put computer science kits in every school. What that ended up looking like is Lego robotics kits for both younger grades and middle school, and then Sphero robots, two kinds, the Indy and the Bolt. The Bolt's kind of like a round one, but the Indies are what are made for pre-learning learners, though I will tell you I had middle school students and they would fight over the Indies long before the Bolts because they're so much fun. So what happens is they do not require a computer. They come with kits, challenge kits that you could give your kids or you could let them program, but you'll see it shows them all the different areas, so you can use shapes and colors. And basically you lay the mats out on the floor and then the Indy will start up. I can get him to turn on. There he goes. And then you start him on green because, as we all know when driving, green means go and red means stop. So the kids will flip through, they'll find green, they'll find red, which is the weirdest shade of red you've ever seen in your life, but they claim that's red. And then I'm gonna move this real quick so that there's room on the table. But you start on green, you go on go, and when you set him down, he'll count. And he goes forward until he finds red, and then it turns red on the top. So different colors, you can do angles in different areas, and the Indy will move. So what will happen is kids will have, one of the things that we talked about with failure recovery is things like when the Indy doesn't go where you wanted him to go, what do? And kids will naturally revert back to trying to solve the problem, which then is debugging as we use it. So there's Indies, we have things like B-Bots. Oh, I moved him already. A B-Bot is basically a different version of an Indy you can find in a lot of schools, but again, they do not require a computer. They have simple buttons on the top, and you can do a lot of different computer science robotic skills with both of these, having your children just free play, or you can give them very specific things you want them to do. And the entire time, they're working on critical thinking, and they're working on failure recovery. There are also Cubettos and Osmobots that we don't have, unfortunately, to show you. And we have Lego Prime Essentials, which is this kit right here. So I also have on here, you'll see there's a bunch, but there are a wide variety of unplugged resources. So again, even if you don't want to use any sort of robot or any sort of computer, unplugged resources are very rampant, and they're always graded for different age groups. So you can go as little as 1 and 2 year olds. You can find unplugged activities that are usually based predominantly in play with some computer science, critical thinking, failure recovery built in. So CS Unplugged is a great website. Kindercoding Unplugged, Codable, Code.org, Teachers Pay Teachers, and the LT Illinois CS activities are all great websites. They're all completely free. They don't charge for anything. You can simply go and activate them. When you go in here, I kind of found, and full disclosure, I use ChatGPT for this because we're modeling proper AI use. But I had asked ChatGPT to give me just 10 really great activities with links that you'll find. So they did an Hour of Code Unplugged packet. It's literally an entire packet of everything you need to do a dance party with your younger kids where they're working on computer science concepts. Codable Unplugged, there were screen-free projects that had logic, sequencing, and problem solving. This one was CS Unplugged with simple unplugged tasks. So if you're going through, you can use any of these QR codes. They'll take you right to the activity. It's already in PDF form, ready for you to print and take with you. But there's about 10 of them. And they're really great. There's sequencing story cards, paper programming games where you're using arrows and paper grids to code a path. So there's so much computer science that you can do unplugged. I even did a lot of unplugged activities with my middle schoolers because a lot of times for using hands-on, you can get more activity and you can get kids to pay attention a lot better than if they're just simply staring at a screen. And you'll notice that they didn't, that they're on task.
And then the magic starts. So I think one of the things when we think about, especially little kids using technology, again, we've kind of talked about some of the concerns and challenges that people might have with that, but two of the areas that I really like to focus on is the idea of creating with technology so that students can genuinely be creators. We kind of talk about that creation versus consumption piece. But students really can create fantastic things with technology. And I'll have a few examples. And then also using technology to share. So whether they're sharing their thoughts through, a video recording, or they're capturing some kind of learning, a process, demonstrating that in some way. But then they're all, I think, for educators working in, whether it's in a preschool classroom setting or in a third grade classroom setting, one of the challenges always is how do you share with parents what we're doing in the classroom? And technology is one of the great levelers of being able to do that. And parents, especially parents of early elementary kids, they love to see what their kids are doing in school. So that sharing aspect of technology is really important. I skipped. Creating was the one I wanted to do first. So creating, I kind of just have a few examples in there, a couple that I had mentioned. Making an animation such as stop motion, coding a demonstration of some sort of process. One of the sessions that I was in this morning was talking about doing hands-on STEM activities. And for me, it just kind of struck me, she was showing us pictures of students doing all these things. And my thinking is, you could hand a kid a camera or a tablet or something. They could be taking those pictures. That would be their assignment, their job for the days. I want you to go around and capture what we're doing with the activities for this station, or for this larger activity that we're all doing. And then kids doing the actual activity, they can be explaining what it is that they're doing, whether it's getting into what did I actually learn, or if you do enough of that recording, you're gonna find stuff that's hilarious and fun, and that is part of what you want to be projecting in your classroom. Telling digital stories, obviously kids can be making artwork. They can have artwork and be narrating what it is that's happening in a story that they've created. Littles are fantastically creative, and it's a great way to kind of honor that and give them a platform to share that, which, again, everybody loves seeing those cute videos. And then the last one I mentioned there, getting kind of back to some of the robots, so something like a Bee-Bot, using a device like this to actually channel their creativity, make a sequence, have it do something specific, go through a certain challenge that they design, like a maze, or I've seen people do have the Bee-Bot go through the processes of a bee or a flower or something like that.
One of the things that I have really enjoyed is, as John was describing, that reporter role. I don't know if I told you this. I was in a second grade. I was in a school that had second graders, and this young man comes up to me and he's like, "My job today is to be the roving reporter." I'm like, "You are the best." And what he was exactly what he described, he was getting his classmates to narrate their tasks, which was doubling the learning. It was really neat to see, and that kind of thoughtful questioning that really just changed the way that the producers were conceptualizing the work they were doing.
I like this particular example that I pulled from Community Regional Charter up in Skowhegan, but where they had students, you can kind of see they've got all the clay on there, so very hands-on, where they're doing stuff with clay, but then there's that other digital element to it, where they're recording it and doing stop motion. And you don't you don't really necessarily have to do intricate stop motion. You can just kind of make those characters or use pre-made characters to do that. Clay, again, it's very hands-on, and definitely one that I've seen a lot of people do and really enjoy that approach. This is one that I dug out of the archives from a couple of years ago, but they had used the program Scratch Junior and actually programmed kind of a scene like the eclipse when everybody was crazy about the eclipse in Maine. But Scratch Junior is a very simple block-based coding program that kids could use. I think pre-K, kindergarten might need a little bit more support, but it's amazing how quickly they kind of pick that up. And it does have this tactile nature because it's blocks on the screen, so I know we're kind of about screen stuff, but this is a good example of something I feel like you're using the screen, but you're leaning in and you're active and doing something. And this was at Smith Elementary School up in Winterport. And now a couple sharing examples. This is one that I really love. If you're at a small elementary school and you've got bigger kids, whether 5th, 6th, 7th grade, like however old they might be, maybe even if they're like a neighboring school, having those big kids come and work with younger kids is a wonderful way to get everybody kind of moving forward in a positive direction. Little kids will be so engaged and excited to learn about whatever it is from the big kids. And you can see right here, they have those indies, which we just were showing you. But this guy, he's able to come down and show these younger kids how this works. So it gives him a lot of ownership of the situation, definitely boosting a lot of confidence. And as we kind of, Allison had showed you before, like the learning curve for this is very quick. It's not something that would be so complicated that it's going to be overwhelming for anybody. I don't think the littles would get really frustrated even if their instructor wasn't the best instructor, and I don't think the instructor would get kind of overwhelmed by all the different parts and pieces here. So this is a really nice example. We had a number of people who implemented programs like this when we did our CS Mobile Labs. If they were in an elementary school, loved having 5th or 6th graders go down and work with kids. It's kind of similar to Reading Buddies, which is something that a lot of schools do already, but it just kind of takes that concept and does something a little bit different. This one seems almost like too simple to even share, but can be really transformative if you do well in a classroom. This is at Eastport Elementary School. They have an interactive whiteboard, and it's literally, they have a worksheet on here that all the students are going to need to do. No differently than you might have a student get up on the chalkboard and be writing and sharing something. That student's doing it on an interactive whiteboard and demonstrating it that way. So very simple, aside from maybe acquiring the actual interactive whiteboard, but I know a lot of schools have those, and just the idea of like, how do we use these aside from showing videos on them or the teacher using them, but like actually getting kids up and demonstrating stuff can be a really positive way to have them explore. And I think I meant to put in there, maybe I didn't, is so this, what he's sharing right here, working on up there, if you have a program like Seesaw or maybe a school website, Facebook page, things like that, being able to capture this type of student work and share it with your school community is really, really important. Mm-hmm. So something like Seesaw can work in a lot of different ways. I think it kind of shares the bigger, like, these are some of the great things happening at school. So important for schools to be building that narrative of these are the fantastic things that are happening in your public schools. But also for parents, if they can see what kinds of things their students are doing, whether it's, this is the kind of math that we're working on, this is the process that we're working on, or this is a science lesson that we did and we learned about whatever the science concept was. If parents are getting that information, that will open up conversations with students. And I think math's a good example because many parents are going to be math phobic, like, I didn't do good with math in school, like, how am I going to have those conversations with kids? But you really can, and there are a lot of resources out there. Often it's, teachers sharing along those resources that can be really helpful. But if a parent is looking at like, oh, this is Johnny at school who did this work here, maybe he can explain it to me.
It also is amazing to see the difference when kids have an authentic audience that they know is going to be seeing what they're doing. It just ramps up their game in the coolest way.
Absolutely.
I've loved it's the roving reporter kid that I was talking about. Then became the talking to the adults person, and he slayed it.
And those type of skills, really like building those at a younger age. It pays dividends. We have a program, I don't have it featured in here, SLAM, Student Leadership Ambassadors of Maine. Those students are so good at what they do. They're based out of Nokomis High School. And the reason is because they've been doing that type of work for years and years and years through their broadcasting program. I wanted to make mention of this because we always try to make sure that we include littles in this upcoming showcase event that we have, our Computer Science Education Showcase. It's going to be at the Cross Insurance Center up in Bangor, so if that's a local drive for people in mid-December, that might be something that people might be interested in. We really try to get a broad representation of age levels, different types of technology, having nonprofits, higher ed. I mean, really try to get a variety there so people can see, and it's a very exciting, and as we were saying, having kids there sharing stuff that they're doing is definitely like the cherry on top. It's great to hear and see all the things schools are doing, but when it's kids showing you what they're doing, that's the best part.
And you can see Slam Kids there. They come up, they have a video game that they created, like it looks like an old Pac-Man game. It's literally a Cooper Flag game because Cooper Flag is from Nokomis.
Yes.
So they made it a few years ago when he was there. We have kids coming up. I don't know if they're coming this year because it's more of the drive, but kids at Scarborough High School have created their own AI. So instead of using ChatGPT or Magic School, they have high schoolers that created an AI, and they bring that up, and they can literally talk to you about how they created it, how it works. It's absolutely amazing. So it's a really great representation of what's going on in computer classrooms all across the state. And a lot of it is really driven by students. We have robotics teams. There are like 2 or 3 robotics teams that come that are literally like they're on the world stage for robotics here in Maine. And so like Bucksport, Brewer, there's one from Southern Maine whose name now completely, I had it like 30 seconds ago. But they're really fantastic opportunities to come and see what kids are doing and teachers are doing in Maine.
And then I also lastly wanted to share this. So we kind of talked about what are different ways that MLTI, our larger program, is working to incorporate elementary schools. And this, our MLTI Winter Classic event, grew out of during the pandemic. We have a student conference that we've had up in Orono for 25 years now. And
For middle schoolers.
For middle schoolers. And during the pandemic, we turned that into a virtual conference and had thousands and thousands and thousands of students participating. So we're like, okay, we can't just get rid of this virtual model, but maybe we can modify it and make it something unique and all of its own. So we've really shifted to this game-based model, which we have a lot of resources. You can play the version from last year. We have one that targets middle school and up, and then we have a version last year that we developed to cater to elementary grade school level.
It shows on the next slide.
And then we go to the next slide. You can see, so we have like this game board that they're moving around, and then there's a little video that kind of will explain the flow of the actual game itself. But this is, again, we had thousands of schools participate for the virtual conference, so it was so important to keep that interest and engagement. So last year, introducing an elementary version, we had a lot of elementary schools sign up and participate and enjoyed it. So we can always grow and improve our programs, but we kind of need people to be involved with them and giving their feedback so we can know how to better do that. But like I said, last year's game's up there and available, and we have a lot of resources. So if you have to go to somebody at your school or an administrator to make the hard pitch of we should really do this year, we have a lot of materials that you can look at.
I have a question.
Yes.
So I'm a career in technical education. I teach early childhood specifically, but one of the things that I was just connecting with is the essence of, sometimes we have people that feel like they're just out in the wilderness, and then I'm also making the connection of how you talked kind of like about the Big Brother connection with like literacy. Is there any type of opportunity, or have you ever thought of the idea of having career in technical education, computer and electronic programs go into some of these elementary schools to help with the initiative of like, so instead of having them, be out in the wilderness, you have these high school students that are coming that might be able to have the opportunity to build on their knowledge, to work with these younger kids within the school, but also give assistance to the educators.
Yes.
Can you refresh for 1 second? So my program brings in 8 classroom teachers
Yep.
who spent 2 years or less at the DOE providing professional learning. 4 of them have elementary background, and 2 of those just described to me the program you just said. Like, I want to do this. I'm like, okay, let me see what I can. Oh wait, that's awesome. So I'm there in the middle. If you reach out to me,
Okay.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. 4 of those people are elementary focused, and they were saying like how cool it would be to mentor. And then you're the best. Look, she has my card because I can't seem to carry my on. But it's a really neat opportunity to bring people in who have that classroom experience but might be able to facilitate it. And the SLAM shows do that to a degree in that the SLAM kids who are high school age teach in elementary schools, but it's on a very it's one location at a time, once a month. And the idea of having that sort of mentorship, almost like big, I don't think I want to say big brother tech. I don't mean that. You're technologically helpful big brother, big sister. Tech buddy would be really cool. So thank you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it just because like I just think about the opportunities that those high school students have and they're very busy within, the high school. But this would open up so many opportunities, not just for elementary school kids, but for also the high school kids to be able to spend on different opportunities,
Yes.
'cause they're gonna be challenged with that
Sure.
too.
That's awesome.
And we also do, like I said, we do a student conference in May, and that one we really try to, like last year we had like 60 student presenters. Like we really tried to push to get more students there presenting and running sessions. So to me, like that seems like definitely an obvious fit, but it takes time to plan and really to show other stuff. I mean, as confident and competent as one may be, to actually teach others and have it be a positive experience for them. I mean, that whole nature of pedagogy is the whole thing. So I think in addition to kind of like recruiting people or a few new people or had suggestions of people that might be good at that, people on our team, maybe working with them or providing different opportunities to set them up for success as well. Because we want them to feel successful going and doing that so that they'll want to, of course, come back and present in the future. But also we want the students in attendance to have a positive experience and really learn something. And if they're learning from older kids, like, all the better.
The last thing I'd say too is it'd be an opportunity to collaborate, so you could ask the early childhood program to collaborate with the computer electronic program and put an ECE student with the computer electronics student so that they could make sure it's developmentally appropriate and help with integrating approaches so that it's a full circle.
Yeah. And I would even say too, you could have middle school students in the upper middle school. That would be really great too, depending on what they have for a background in their school. But I've been to certain schools where you could even do that with middle school level too, which is awesome.
Well said.
Any more changes behind the scenes?
Nope. Apologize. There we go. Oh, you're good. Sorry. The clouds, I think, is the 3 clouds before it, but I don't know that we're necessarily.
Yeah.
We're gonna put you in your corners, but that would be sort of mean. So
You just be by yourself in a
Yeah.
corner.
why don't we all together consider this question?
Initially, we had to design that we could like break people up into groups, and if you had something that you more wanted to focus on.
Well, it said there's going to be 77 people in here, and we were trying to figure out where we were going to put 77 people. We were like, there's only 50 seats in here.
Yeah.
It seems wrong.
You guys did a really good job, bouncing at the door.
Well, I think this might be a good question to end with. What are one or more ways a student may express themselves, share their learning, or connect with their peers? All of this, we're using the lens of technology, of course, but I think all of those are important beyond just technology.
I'll start. I'll jump in. When I taught middle school, one of my favorite things to have the kids do was make me podcasts. So I would give them random weird topics, and they were really good at finding random and weird topics on their own because middle schoolers are random and weird. But you could do it with any grade level, and really, for a lot of podcasting, it's not very complicated. You don't need a high-end program. I mean, you could literally, especially with younger kids, use an iPad and the camera on the iPad, and they're literally just talking to themselves, but it's really fantastic. And when you're calling it a podcast or a video recording, it allows younger kids, especially kids that are maybe struggling. Like I have a daughter that's dyslexic, so asking her to write a report is very painful for her. But allowing kids to simply just record themselves verbally is a really great way for them to auditory process what they saw and what they talked about. You'll find that sometimes too with auditory, it's more fresh and it's more off the cusp, and they think they have kind of deeper thoughts because they're talking and they're having other things besides just sitting and writing or typing. So I always really enjoyed letting students self-record. You could call it a podcast, even sometimes when it's not a podcast, but it's a really fantastic way to let kids share.
One of my absolute favorites is the simplest one that I can think of, which is a world language teacher I used to work with who had a partner classroom in Peru, and she and her students had one-to-one buddies in the other classroom, and they just Zoomed with each other for practice and the two target languages, and it was like, it couldn't happen with technology, but it was effectively a phone call, right? And it was just such a neat concept. And then they did this thing called the Monster Project, and they each wrote in the target language a story of a monster, and then they collaborated to correct each other, get it, I guess corrected for the person's native language, and then they presented to each other. And it was just so simple, but so transformative in terms of their experience with the language.
I think the example that I would share, that I almost put in here but didn't, but is the idea of like doing a tech night or a STEM night at the early elementary levels. Teachers love to do theme nights for kids, math night, reading night, all of those things. I think within those, the design of those opportunities where kids can share something is sometimes overlooked. It's often, little stations being run by adults and stuff, but I think if you can find those opportunities to empower a student, like over here we're gonna do something with the B-Bots, it gives those kids like some agency to share, like, oh, this thing that we've been doing in the classroom, now I'll be able to show my parents, my siblings, my grandparents, like whomever comes, I can show them this thing that I know about, and I think that can be a really empowering experience for kids. And sometimes the most unlikely kids just
Blossom.
Yeah, like they're
It's
like,
so cool.
I never would have thought you were going to be
Right?
the one that was going to be the expert on this,
I
but
love
you
that.
are.
I want to make sure you let the next people in, but we are delighted to help out further. Don't hesitate to reach out and let us know how else we could support this work. If you'd like to take two great themes home for what John just described. One is the Coder Express in the wintertime. We did one in Kid Elizabeth that I absolutely loved. It was just hilarious and so fun. And then in Gorham, we've done in the springtime, May the 4th be with you, which worked beautifully as a theme for a huge, hundreds and hundreds of kids and families coming for our Tech Night as well. Thank you all so much for having me. Each and every one of you. And may you have somewhere between 77